I am in Brunswick, Georgia, heading north, back home. So I'm right off of I-95. I'm about to get on the interstate and just keep trying to truck home. I just left Amelia Island. It is Monday morning after the Amelia Island Concours, or the whole Amelia Island weekend. And and it's party's over and it's time to go home. I guess that's what you could say. I drove my my 03 911 down this year, and this year was kind of crazy. Every year I go to a car show or one of these big car shows, it changes in nature. You just never know how it's going to turn out. I mean, I plan to go, like Amelia Island, I planned to go months ago, or maybe even last year. Yeah, of course, we're going to go back. It's just like I go to Monterey every year. But you never know who's going to call to ask to do something. So it's kind of like book the trip, going anyway, and if other people, if somebody needs you to do something, you do something. And that can go anywhere from somebody saying, hey, are you going to Amelia Island? I'm showing my car. Would you mind taking care of it? Where I have to get in and unload it from the truck and make sure it's clean, get it parked on the lawn, show it, meet the owner, do all that stuff, put it back on the truck, and come on home. It can be just, hey, I got a car at an auction that I'm thinking about bidding on. Do you mind putting eyes on it in person? To also just meeting people who I haven't had a chance to meet yet, and meeting them in person down at a car show that they're going. Let's say they're down in Florida and they're going to go, or they were planning on going to Amelia Island, and so we find a time to meet, and that works too. So this year, I really didn't have plans. I didn't have somebody who was showing a car at Amelia Island. I had a couple customers that I thought about doing it, but I said, you know what, I don't think that I can, I didn't think the car was ready, or I felt like, it's not, you don't have to go to this one, you should go to that one, and trying to decide which show to go to. So I kind of felt like I had the I had the week off, and it turned out to be very much the opposite. Without going down there, I said, hey, listen, I got the week off, I can hang out, I do all this stuff, and I just ended up just never stopped. I mean, I drove down from New York. First stop, I had to stop in the DC metro area to look at this Testarossa, and then after the Testarossa, I had to rush down and meet the guys in North Carolina, original Amelia Island or Bust group, do a fun little day or two down in North Carolina, and then motor on down, because the Bonhams auction starts on Wednesday. So the preview was Wednesday, the auction was Thursday. So I had to get myself to the auction to try to see a car for a client that was interested in bidding on it, and try to get a preview of it, because trying to do it on the auction day is very difficult. There's so many people at the auctions, they're bidding, they're getting ready to go, and it's too frantic. So usually you try to do it on the preview days, where it's a little bit more laid back, you have a little bit more access to the cars. So I was still on the road on Wednesday. I was in North Carolina on Wednesday morning. So I jumped in my car early on Wednesday morning, and then just drove on down. So I had a frantic, quick 8-10 hour drive ahead of me. Got down to North Carolina. I mean, got down to Bonhams, and was able to look at the car and confer with the owner and talk about it. And he ended up buying it on Thursday. So I guess the good thing is that's what they look for. He saw it, he drove it, he liked it, and but he wanted just my professional opinion to look at the car to make sure there was nothing majorly wrong with the car. And I didn't see anything that jumped out at me. I gave him the list of things that I thought was wrong, and he got on he actually wasn't on site for the actual auction, because he had come in just to see it the day that for the preview day on Wednesday. He just couldn't get away on Thursday, and went home and then phone bidded it in and bought the car. So that was my Wednesday. And then Thursday, the auctions actually start. Or actually, no, the previews for the other auctions start. So I had to look at cars and funny thing was having dinner on Wednesday night, talking to people who were just getting into town, and someone at dinner was like, "Hey Tom, I got this car. Do you mind taking a quick look at it? I really like it. I'm thinking about buying it." And coincidentally, I was already going down to one of the auction houses to go look at this car. So I said, "Hey, listen, I got another guy who's looking at this car." I hate feeling like two customers are going to bid on the same car, because when you have two guys bidding heavily against a car that they like, that can't turn out well for one of them, because you just keep bidding higher and higher. Sometimes if you call off one of the guys and say, "Listen, is this really your car? Because I got another guy on it," and it can really affect the outcome of the auction. So, but I said, "Look, I'm taking a look at the car anyway, so I'll give you my opinion and see maybe it is a good car, or maybe it isn't a good car. So we're not even going to fight over it." So I had that on my list for Thursday. We had two auction houses kind of competing with each other. RM Auctions, which has been around for a while, recently had a little bit of a coup. A lot of the members in that auction house had left and started up a new company called Broad Arrow. Broad Arrow is owned by Haggerty. And if you don't know the name Haggerty, Haggerty has been making this acquisitions and name for themselves in the last few years, several years. Started out as an insurance company, but now is just a whole branding, lifestyle, for lack of a better term, conglomerate. I mean, they big changes in the last year. They had a SPAC, they had an IPO, they became, that now they're publicly owned, and they've always towed this line of doing great things for, car collectors and car owners, and a branding of a lifestyle change. And I think that they've certainly, everybody knows who they are, and I think starting a couple years ago, they started buying car shows, and then they started buying storage facilities, and then they started, this latest thing is they bought Broad Arrow, which is an auction house. It was started by these ex-RM people, and they then were purchased by Haggerty. So now Haggerty has an interest in this auction house. And then in the last several months, we have auction representatives or specialists that had worked for other companies for years also get sniped and moved over to Broad Arrow. So I don't think there's an auction company of any significance. Well, that I'm just an outsider, so I don't know specifically if all three big auction houses or four or whatever, how many, who is the top three, who is the top four. But I certainly know personal friends that have recently changed allegiance from one auction house to Broad Arrow, and I'm certain that the RM auction house was not happy to lose so many employees and to Broad Arrow. So there's a little bit of contention there as far as competition, and look, there's only so many cars that are out there available to be sold off. So these auction specialists spend all year long looking for inventory and convincing them that they deserve to have the opportunity to put these cars up for auction. And competition-wise, it's about how well do they do? Do they sell the cars? Do they get good cars? Do they get the top cars, or do they get second-rate cars? Who took? It's just like buying for a car broker. You're chasing after a car. You're trying to get it as cheap as possible, or promise somebody as little as possible to take their car, and then bring it to sign a contract to sell it at your auction house. The other guy might give you a better deal, and so the owners in one way can sit there and say, hey, we're in a good position to have competition. Another auction house that wants to get my car. But I don't know. Sometimes it can be hurtful because for a seller. I mean, to have two auction houses fighting for you is one thing, but then they're all trying to get the best cars, and they're all trying to promise things that maybe they can't deliver because they're just so desperate to try to get your car that they can say, well, look, we'll give you a high reserve, so we'll make sure that your car sells, but the car doesn't sell. Well, that doesn't do anybody any good. So it's all interesting. I mean, I kind of look at it like I have a front row seat of all this, I know that RM's auctions they really spent a ton of money constructing a stage from scratch, because they originally were paired with Amelia Island. They had a contract to be the auction house at Amelia Island. The Amelia Island Concours was held on a Sunday in recent years, and then the auction was always done on the same day or the day before. It was kind of like that weekend at the Ritz, which was the lawn is where the Ritz, or the golf course at the Ritz, was where the show was, and then inside the Ritz was where the auction was held. And since Haggerty bought Amelia Island, the show, they basically had their own auction house. So their plans, and the writing was on the wall last year, that RM's days were numbered at the Ritz. So then this year was where RM lost the space for the Ritz, and Haggerty inserted Broad Arrow in the place that once was dominated by RM. RM had no choice, because not that they didn't have a choice, but they decided to still hold an auction the same weekend that they've always done, but they had to relocate to a new place. But they didn't want to feel like they got moved to a lesser place, so they built a huge facility out of scratch, with tents and planking and video monitors and space. I mean, it was actually almost nicer than what they had at the Ritz, because the Ritz is limited by the space they have around the hotel. And RM managed to just take an open field near the airport and just create an air-conditioned tent with as much space as they needed for all the cars and places and spectators and things like that. So it actually was a pretty impressive tent, all knowing that RM was RM's last hurrah. They were no longer going to do Amelia Island anymore. They said that they were going to make a big splash on the last one and just say goodbye to people that they've known for many years at this venue and this date. The rumor on the street is that RM is planning to do this March time slot of moving their whole live auction to Miami. I'm not sure what date. Are they going to go the same date as the Amelia Island Concours next year? We don't know. That's yet to be seen. I heard that they possibly were, and then the rumor was that it was going to pick the previous week or something. So we'll see. But personally, for me, it's just having Bonhams, have RM, and to have Broad Arrow, and then we also have Gooding, which Gooding is always set up in another facility that they do every year, and Gooding seems to be the one that's not involved in this quote unquote war between Broad Arrow and Broad Arrow and RM. But Gooding just kind of motored along and continued doing their sales, and I believe that they did pretty well this time. And the funny thing is, maybe you look at this as maybe Gooding will come out the victor when RM and Broad Arrow are so busy spending money and trying to attract business that they can't become profitable, and then it could be that Gooding just sneak on by and continue making profit without trying to go to war with another auction house. You never know. It's kind of like a soap opera, or watching this whole thing play out, and who could be the victor. Maybe all three will continue, or four houses will continue to be profitable in a time of selling cars. But to me, it's always staggering how much money is out there to sell cars, and millions and millions of dollars are being exchanged, and yet each auction house seems to be making millions and millions of dollars, and yet there seems to be no end in sight. It's pretty. It's not that it's unnerving, but it's surprising how much money is out there that just continues to be sold on cars. I've been involved with cars for 20, 25 years, and probably longer, since reading car magazines since I was a kid and watching prices and wondering whether or not I could ever afford them. And all of a sudden, it's these prices are 10, 20 times more than when I started, and yet it seems to keep going up and up, and yet there are plenty of people coming to the table and buying these cars. So it's always pretty surprising. So anyway, for me, having gone to Broad Arrow and also RM, they had two similar cars that were there. I went and inspected them. So I was looking at a 365 GTC4, and they were interesting because it's, talk about going into competition. They're both identical colored cars. One was in lesser condition than the other one, but yet, two C4s with only about 400 some odd cars, 500 some odd made, to have two metallic blue C4s at auction, right across the a couple miles away from each other it was pretty. I don't think you could spell out competition better than that. Yes, they were the cheaper cars of all the Ferraris that were for sale, but they got one and the other house got one. So Broad Arrow had the better one. So I went and looked at it and the problem with an inspection at an auction is that if there's time, they'll let you drive it. Sometimes you can get a compression check, but very rarely. And then the rest of it is just a visual inspection. I mean, you really don't have time to do a thorough inspection all the time. So, but I had some time. I looked at it. I went over the car, and everything's fine. But I found one little mechanical question. It wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't like something, but it was a question. I said, I heard this sound, and I'm not sure what it could be. And the caveat to both of my buyers was, okay, well, the C4, that's the Achilles heel to the C4 is mechanical issues with the engine. For exploratory, for lack of a better term, surgery on a C4 engine is pretty involved. It could be 20 to 30 hours just to take the valve covers off because I have to take the carburetors off, the intakes. So my advice was, bid on this car and wait for the number to go where you want to be, dialing in numbers that you can afford, that we can actually find out what that noise was in the engine, or let it go. Let somebody else bid on it. Maybe they know better than we do or know enough history on the car. And I said that was probably the best course of action. So what ended up happening was both guys that I had on this C4, they kind of passed on the car and they watched it go up and someone else was a buyer. They have a really nice car. The car had hundreds of thousands of dollars of receipts, recently restored, and that. So the cost of doing the body work and all the other things in the interior was already done. But I just felt that there was no real understanding of what was going on with the engine, and I just felt like it could be fine. Every time, and again, my position as an inspector is someone to say just err on the side of caution, because I don't want someone to say, hey, why didn't you tell me that you heard a sound or you didn't hear a sound? I mean, I could miss a sound, but if I hear a sound, I'm going to tell somebody about it. I'm not an alarmist, but it's my job to call it as I see it, and try to stay as neutral as possible. So that's what we ended up doing with this car. Thursday and Friday were 2 days of just kind of looking at previews, going to auctions. I went to Gooding because Gooding was starting their auction on Friday, so I had a chance to go over to Gooding and look at some cars and usual stuff. It's not it's not whining and dining, but it's just I kind of call it I call it speed dating. You get to a car show or you get to an auction and you're just trying to shake hands and see people and as fast as you can, because if you don't say hello to people, when they're passing by, you might not see them again. There's so many people at the shows, and so you're just trying to do that as quickly as possible. So that's kind of like when you're not really meeting somebody, you're just kind of working to see people and catch up and hear the scuttlebutt, and same thing. All this stuff that I'm telling you about Broad Arrow and RM is from several sources, and just there's a consensus of what's going on from insiders that actually work at Broad Arrow or at RM, and outsiders who are looking in and have some kind of job that's tangentially involved in the auction house. It's always good to have an overall view and that's what you do when you're not working for a specific client. Yeah, so that's that was the auction side of my Amelia Island experience this year, and good fun and lots of information, lots of people to talk to, and I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit of it. And if you were at Amelia Island and you have your experience, go ahead and share them on the comments below, or tell me if I'm on target or off target. And I'd love to hear your opinions of what you think of the Broad Arrow auctions and the RM auctions, and how you felt that they did, and did my impressions match yours, or were they opposite? So love to hear the comments, and thanks for watching.